All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Welcome to Sharing More Than the Sheets, a podcast to help you and your partner make better financial and lifestyle decisions so that you can both focus on the things that you love. I'm your host, Michael Khouri, financial planner, green thumb, husband, and just dad. We all have bad habits. For some people, it's drinking. For some, it's smoking. For some, it's something really simple, like leaving the toilet seat up all the time. There are many different habits that we have, and as humans, it's very normal. Nobody is perfect. But there are some habits that affect others around us. And specifically, today, I'd like to talk about money. Money habits can sometimes seem so innocent because it could be something that you've always done, or something that you probably don't think affects anyone else. But when you have a partner or children, it does have a very serious medium or long-term effect on the family, because there are certain money habits that can stop you from saving as much as you need to so that you can go on that family holiday. Or there are certain habits that may limit your ability to pay down debt or limit your ability to invest. Today I wanted to talk about 8 money habits which really need to be broken, or at least worked on by most people. The first one is not having a budget. Now, I've talked about budgeting so many times on my episodes in the past, but I can't talk about it enough. Not having a budget is such a bad habit when somebody essentially decides to just fluke it, to wing it, to just go with the flow. It's not the best strategy with anything, especially money, because when there is no structure, when there is no plan, it's very easy for money to be wasted, and for you to not have an understanding of to what your income and expenses are and where things are going. When you have a budget, it makes it very easy to see where money is going, and it makes it very easy to understand what your other issues are or other habits that may need to be addressed. The second one is impulse shopping. So doing shopping and buying things just without thinking about it. And to many people, it could be something as simply as going past some shops on the way to work, knowing that you're most likely going to walk in there and buy something that you probably don't need. To others, it could be a bit of an eBay hunt at 1:30 in the morning just before sleep, where you're randomly searching things up, knowing that you're most likely going to buy something that you don't really need. For me, I'm a victim of that. Well, not a victim, I'm a culprit, I should say, where, I've done, a bit of eBaying at midnight and bought a few things which, I probably could have lived without. So understanding that habit is also very important. Just to know that once you're aware of it, you can do things to reduce impulse shopping, and also making sure that you're not using certain things as excuses. Like, there's a sale every single week on every single thing that we buy. There's always deals that end within 24 hours. There's all these different things that are made to tempt us to jump and to buy something. But if we can understand these things, we can reduce this habit or even control it. The third one is paying your bills late. So when most people will leave things until the last minute, unfortunately. And that's why we have deadlines on things. That's why there's a deadline for assignments, because no one really likes doing assignments. So there's always a deadline to make sure that they're done on time. Paying bills. No one enjoys paying bills. I mean, I have never actually met a person to this date that gets a kick and gets really excited when they receive a bill for something that they need to pay. And paying them late can cause so many issues. The first one is, even if they're paid on time, there's the lack of structure and the lack of accountability. The second issue is, if they are late, there are late fees. And late fees are not fun because it's literally a fee that you could have avoided. Now, if you're paying a bill late because you didn't have the money, that's where budgeting comes in. So that we're going back to number 1. But if the money's there and it's just literally a habit, then set up automatic payments, set up direct debits. I've talked about this in my episodes many times, but especially I've done some literally on bills. But if you have a bills account and your bills can literally just direct debit, then your bills can direct debit out of that account. And it just means that things will be automated and they're not late. And the biggest bonus is that you don't need to think about it. It just happens. Another one, which as adults, most of us are guilty of here and there, but using an emergency fund for non-emergencies. So any proper structured budget will have an emergency fund of some sort. And using that money for something that's not an emergency and telling yourself, you know what are the chances that I'm going to need that within the next couple of months is not a good idea, because emergencies are never planned and no one ever sees an emergency coming. The issue is when you get into that habit, mentally you suddenly start feeling that it's okay to touch the emergency fund. And that can sometimes spiral out of control. Now, don't get me wrong. If it needs to be accessed, it needs to be accessed. But just make sure that there's regular contributions to top it up, or a strategy in place instead of, oh yeah, we'll just top that up when we get the chance next. Or we'll wait till next year's tax return. We won't put anything in there for now. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a free 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au. Another one, and this one's a big one for me, or any advisor really, it's buying things on credit when you don't need to. So I'm not going to mention names of any popular systems where you buy something and you pay for it later, but some of them could literally just be for a pair of shoes, and it doesn't make sense to spend money that you don't have. Now, again, if there's a strategy around it, if it's for tax purposes or investment purposes, or you are buying something that you really need and you don't have the money for it, but it's justified, then it's different. But when you're literally just buying something because you want it now and you can't wait 2 weeks, then that's not a good habit, because it's also creating a pattern which can lead you down the pathway of destruction. The sixth one is not saving money at all, even if you can actually afford it. Now, all of us should be saving money. Now, there are some circumstances where money can't be saved if a budget is extremely tight, and I've got some clients now where we have a plan in place to get them to a position where they can start saving money very quickly. But if you're not saving money, especially when the money is literally there, then that's not a good habit, because you'll find yourself in a position where you'll look back in 5 or 10 years and just really regret not doing that. Because if money's not saved, it's spent. And if it doesn't need to be spent, then it's being wasted. There's nothing wrong with buying nice things. There's nothing wrong with spoiling yourself. But when you're regularly not saving money at all, then again, it's a bad habit that needs to be addressed. You need a strategy in place. And as an advisor, it's something I talk to my clients about. My job is to hold them accountable. My job is to come up with a strategy to save money. And if this can be done successfully, it can make such a big difference to your life financially. And just like any of these habits, once you train yourself and once you get into the habit of doing something or not doing something, that then becomes a new habit. And it goes from being a bad habit financially to a good habit. The seventh one is hoarding money. So when you've got money that you're literally just saving up in a bank account and you're doing literally nothing with, that can also be a bad habit, believe it or not. Because the issue with having too much savings is, first of all, there could be money sitting somewhere which, from a financial point of view, could be utilized better somewhere else. And secondly, sometimes there could be, I know people, I've met many before that literally just save and save and save and save, and they don't spend anything on themselves, and they don't enjoy their wealth. They don't enjoy their savings. They just save for the sake of it. They're literally hoarding money. And again, that's also a bad habit, because I've talked about this before, but it's so important to have a balance and so important to have a process in place, or just a balance, because you don't want to spend too much money and blow all your money. And at the same time, you don't want to hoard money and just keep it there, because, unless you have some way of taking it with you to the grave, then it's not going to do anyone any good. So hoarding money can also be an issue. And I've talked about this before, but it's sometimes giving yourself permission to spend money on yourself, to whether it's on your health, whether it's a hobby that you have, whether it's even just socializing and meeting people if you're not socializing enough. But doing these things can make a very, very big difference. And the eighth habit is not listening to yourself and not listening to those around you. So many times in our life, we are in denial about certain things. Now, whether our partner tells us that we need to watch our spending, or we need to invest, or we need to see a financial advisor, or sometimes we'll have friends or even have a financial advisor that's giving us advice, and we're not listening to that person. The last thing anyone should do is be in a position where they're being given advice. There are people around them who want to help them, and they're just not listening. They think that everything is okay, or they think that things can't change. But by understanding our weaknesses and by understanding what we can be doing better, we can do the opposite of fail and succeed. We can make the most of what we have. And I talk about this all the time. My Practice Better financial planning has the motto of feel better, do better, be better. And I never get that order right. I think it's do better, be better, and feel better. But it makes sense, because when you do better, you feel better. And if you can look at your habits, if you can even focus on one of these things I've mentioned in this episode, I promise you it will make a difference. And just like any situation, or just like any person's personal circumstance that I've ever come across, when you work on one thing, you'll then work on the next, just naturally. And then the next, and then the next. And then it'll just build momentum, and then you'll be positive, and you'll feel like you just want to keep growing, and you want to keep doing better. And once you understand these habits, or understand what you're doing wrong, you can also then focus on what you're doing right, and hopefully crush as many habits as you possibly can. Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.